Okay, video stopped, so I'm going to see if I can just carry on and meld them together. I don't know how to do it, but I'll have a go. So we've taken that off with the measurements I gave you. The next thing you need to do, because we're going to have the cuff turn up on the inside by the 1 5/8. So the bottom is now just 3/8 of an inch seam allowance here. Then you've got a 1 1/4. So what I want you to do, using this again, measure 1/4 of an inch in from that 1 5/8 that you can measure up with the tape measure. Go from the stitching line, and then you'll make your mark from the stitching line 1/4 of an inch in. From there, I want you to come down, leaving the 3/8 as it is. Work up from there so you can measure it on 3/8 and start measuring from the stitch line up to that 1/4 of an inch and mark it. And then we're going to go from under the arm, because there's not a lot of room, it's just shy of under the arm, and we're going to chalk up a line going up to those stitches. That is going to be your new seam line. So, yes, we're going to take that one over and you're going to see the sewing machine work. She's a beauty, but she's got a couple of things that aren't too good. Right. How are you doing? On the sewing table. Don't break it, will you? You're getting heavy now. Oh, I've got more than just nieces and nephews watching in the family. So, hello Georgina, love you. Okay, we're going to stitch from just down from the armpit. And what I've done, I've tested my stitches on a piece of scrap. So they look very similar, as close as I can get, to the original stitches, which were top stitches. So I know the stitches look good. Right, I'm coming in on that sewn line. So we're going to go needle down into the stitches, and I'm going to reverse a little bit and go backwards. And this is making sure that my stitches are locked. Press the forwards, come back down, and when you're sewing, don't watch the needle. There's a mark here in the centre. Keep that coming on your little blue drawn line and keep looking to the point where you want to pivot, because you've got a better chance of getting your seam line correct by watching that little pivot point. When I get to that pivot point, because it's in a V and it's quite a sharp V, I'm going to put my needle down. You might have to do it by turning that on a different machine. Turn it straight and just do one stitch. You can just do it by turning that. Then you'll pivot down again. You'll come into that line, which is back towards your stitching line and onto your stitching line. Then you pivot again, getting it straight onto your stitching line. You can come in just a little bit shy from it. And then stop with your needle down, turn it backwards again, and just do a few stitches back, and that'll stop your seam unravelling it, because we're going to go to the ironing board now. Pull that out, trim them off. We will trim them off. And we're going over here with the other shirt. Hang on. Right. This is called a sleeve roll, and they're really useful. This isn't Ronnie Corbett's ironing board. It's a sleeve board. They're really good as well. I'm using this today, otherwise I'm going to be in my own way. Right, what we're going to do is mark. I've actually done it on the good side because you won't see it. You mark up your little 3/8 mark from the bottom of the cuff. So use this again because it's got a spring in it, you see, so it doesn't move. Over to there, then mark your 3/8 all the way around. And then you'll mark your 1 5/8. Yeah, I'm working in inches, guys, because all my sewing equipment's in inches. And you'll mark that all the way around. You see, you can see one little blue line there, but it won't show. Because like we did with the jeans, can you see me? You're going to have to. Right. With the jeans, we turned it in on the line on the good side. So, here's your new stitching line. There's your little bit that's out. Stitch in fairly close to that point, but you don't have to get too close. Take some of the fullness out there. And then take some of the fullness out there. And that's going to stop it being bulky. You can, if you've got one, just run it through the overlocker. So you cut it down with the overlocker. Do you want to see the overlocker? Yes, you do. Right, here we go. Overlocker on. Blouse with new stitch line. I'm coming in from under the arm area because that way I can't make a mistake. This has got a blade on it, so it's going to cut it for me and it's going to stitch it. I've already practiced my stitching on another piece of cuff to make sure I'm happy with the way the stitches lie and what the seam actually looks like once it's been stitched. Pretty, yeah? Right, in we go. Your new stitch line is here. So you go in, nice and gently. There's a little mark here which says where that's stitching. My stitch line is just to the left of that mark. So I'm not cutting into anything I shouldn't. We get to the pivot point and we can just curl it round gently. And there we go. So that one has now been overlocked. Isn't it pretty? Right. Back to the ironing board. Oh yeah, we're going to press those seams open as well. Whenever you do a little seam, always give it a press. This one, you don't really need to overlock it. So you can put your little arm roll in there, press the seams, set them nicely, press all those open, and you can press it from the good side as well to make sure it's nice and smooth. I'm going to get on with that bit later. Can you still see me? Great. I do it with the right side out. And you can see your little blue line. You pinch it between your fingers and then you just press. I do the bottom line first and just press it all the way around. When I've completed the bottom line, I'll go on to the next line and I'll pinch it on the blue line and I'll press. And because we did that little snick of a shape in that seam, remember we went in 1/4 of an inch. Keeping in mind 1/4 of an inch on your seam is actually 1/2 an inch in total off the bagginess, because it was a little bit baggy for her. So we've just taken it in. They often are, if you're taking a sleeve to short, you often have to alter the shape. So we've pressed all that and it fits in beautifully. If you didn't do that, your seam on the inside would end up there and you wouldn't be able to stitch it flush. You folded it up 1 1/4. So what you're going to do now is put your pins in at 1 inch. And you can see through that light that you've got plenty that's going to be taken into the seam. And the inside's all folded in nicely. And because we did that pretty little shape on your seam allowance, it all folds in on the seam so you can stitch it all the way around. So we're going to the sewing machine again. I've tested my stitches. I like what they're doing. Now, if you've got a flatbed machine, which would be like that Singer over there, but it's got lots of stuff on it. Right, anyway, you might not see it then. If you've got a flatbed machine, which is like this, so you can't put your sleeve around the arm, don't try and put it in here and sew that bit and trying to pull this all the way around underneath, because it makes it very difficult. Turn it inside out. So when you put this on the flatbed, you can lift the top layer away, and that is the good side where you can now stitch. And when the machine goes round and round, you're just literally turning the sleeve and you've got more motion. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult to do it from the other way up, because you're guessing whether or not you've got any fabric stuck in or not. Right, so I'm going to move this over. Here we go. And this is what I call my free arm, because this bit here is free. Now, when I said I want you to sew 1 inch, they do have markings on your machine. And if you're not exactly sure if you're going to keep it on the right mark, look, I put some masking tape on. And so you can put your sleeve up to the masking tape and it will guide you. So it will be very, very easy. We've got this under here. That's to the masking tape. I'm going to go in, gently put my foot down and put the needle in, and I'm going to take that back pin out. Lift the foot, pin out. Don't sew over your pins. I know somebody that killed a beautiful banana. So please, do not sew over your pins. I think that's not quite in. Right, there. There we go. So, nice and slowly, you can see where your pins are. You can see where your tape is on the line. Couple of back stitches. Press forwards. And off we go forwards. Now, I know sewing machines go really, really speedy. You don't have to sew quickly. If you do, you're more inclined to make a mistake. You can't see there. I'm going to move you around a bit. Is that better? So I'm guiding the fabric. I'm feeling on the inside with my fingers. You don't actually have to put the pins in. You don't have to put the tape on. When you get used to it, you can feel where that seam is on the inside with your finger. It's here. And that foot is up against the edge of it, actually. So take it round to where your pin is. Take your pin out. Take it round again. Wiggle it about so you've got it nice and neat. Take it round again. Pin out. Round again. It's so satisfying when you can do this. But if you're tired, do your markings and things. That's okay, but don't get the scissors out. If you think you're a little bit tired, don't get the scissors out because you're more inclined to cut it incorrectly if you are tired. I've lost my foot. So we're going back towards the beginning. We're sewing on the right side because I don't want it to rope, same as with the jeans. Right, this bit I can see if I don't just manipulate that foot a little bit, that fabric, it'll have a pucker in it and I don't want that. So I'm just putting a little bit of tension on it. I'm not pulling it because you're going to break a needle. And that way, when it meets, it's pretty. There's no puckering. We're going to do another couple of back stitches. If you're sewing over the end, actually, you don't need to do the back stitches at the beginning because that will secure it nicely. Pull them out. We've got a little cutter here. And what I'll do is I'll take these ends through. So I've got a self-threading needle here. It's got a little bar at the top, sort of a U-shaped thing. You can pull the thread through the needle and it's threaded. And here you go. You can take it through. You can also make your thread disappear, look. Once you've pulled it through. You've got your thread here. You put it into the fabric in between your hem. And push it right through. It's a trick that quilters do. And it's inside the fabric. Push it out in another place. And when you pull it quite tight and cut it, you won't see the ends of the thread. I like to saw at it rather than cut it, because I have in the past snipped my scissors and cut the fabric, and then you've got another repair to do. That takes ages. So we go back to the iron. Does it make you feel seasick when I give it a spin? It would me. Always leave your iron on number 1, because you can guarantee if you've been ironing your jeans, not that you do iron jeans, but anything else, sheets, whatever. If you've got your iron on something hotter than number 1, you will forget. And then you'll come in, you've got a nice little blouse like this. You'll forget it's on really hot. You'll either melt your stitching, because a lot of the threads, especially the overlock threads, they're not as robust as the other threads that you use. And they melt and completely disintegrate and muck the bottom of your iron up. I had done it just a teeny weeny bit today. So, when the threads come off, there's your pretty sleeve. Nice short sleeve for work. I was going to do a button video as well. I'll show you quickly. She wants a button put in the middle. You know, when you gape a little bit. So what you can do with that, we'll see how we do on this. Do your buttons up first. And that will give you a better idea. We know where it's got to go. I've measured the buttonholes on the rest. And what you've got to keep in mind, when you do a button and you sew a button on, you don't actually sew it into where the middle of your buttonhole is going to be. You sew it so it's at the top. Because if you think gravity holding onto your blouse, when it's in the middle, if you put one in the middle there, it would either gape a bit or cause that one to pucker a little bit. So you measure where you want the button to go. You measure how wide your buttonhole is going to be, and you mark. I've done it with a thread trace. You see just a little bit of stitching, and that'll guide you when you do your buttonhole on your sewing machine. And I also use that fantastic tool I just used, wherever it is, because you can draw a straight line right down the middle of it. Button, spacer, clue in the title. I've lost it. Oh, I can see it. Ooh, excuse me. You see that line in the middle? Right. We want the buttonhole that long. And if you get a biro and you mark your buttonhole where it's going to be in the centre, so you've measured where your button is, you're making your buttonhole at the top of where the stitching lines are, and then because of this, you can keep it in a straight line with the rest, and with a biro or a pencil, because you're not going to see it, because where the buttonhole is, you're going to cut it. you can actually mark right onto the fabric in between that hole. Right, we're going over. We're doing this. This sewing machine has quite a few buttonholes already in. We've got a funny little foot because I'm using one of the manuals. It's got this end piece on it with markings on. This one is for automatic buttonholes and it plumbs in at the back here. But we're going for the other one. And it's number 26. So I just program in, 26, she says. And then we get our mark. I'm going to put another one in because I can't see it. We're going to get our mark. Put a mark in again. I'm using this as practice. This came off the sleeves and it was for turning them up. And it's about the same thickness in feel as the placket for the buttons. So I've got a nice blue line, you see. This machine sews backwards first. So I'm going to put that down there and make sure it's right on top of that line. Then I'm going to press go. It wants me to hit the reverse button when I've got it to the desired length. Let's get you in a bit more. Can you see? Right, it's coming up now. That's where my length's disappeared. The blue line here is actually in line with that end bit. So that's my marker for measuring. So I know I can get all the buttons the right length. I'm going to press the reverse button on here. That one there. And what it does, it tacks across a little bit. Are you watching? Yeah. It's difficult to see into this one. There's not a lot of room. And look, it's doing it freehand. Here we go. It's going to come back up now. It's going back to the end of the first row that went backwards. There. Press the reverse button again. And it'll finish it off. That has stopped by itself. I've still got my foot on the pedal down here. But because the buttonhole is finished, that's it. It won't work. So, trim your threads. One of the tricks they say for cutting open your buttonhole is put a pin at the end. So you don't go through the end with a seam ripper. I disagree with that because I have done it once and it did cut the stitches at the end. And I also don't want to have to keep replacing my seam rippers because that is a blade. And if you're nicking that with metal, cutting through, it'll blunt it. And when you get your favourite seam ripper, you don't want to. I'm going to put my seam ripper in this bit at the top and very gently cut, not all the way through. I'm going to go about halfway. Then I'm going to turn it round and I'm going to put it back in this end. Just gently, watch your fingers. and then gently again, push through, and you can even put that end so it's poking out. Nice and parallel. There we go. You can tidy your ends off. They say you can put fray check on it. I've never had to do that. Fray check is very similar in smell to nail varnish. And I wonder actually if it is the same stuff. There's your buttonhole. Simple as that. And that's one of the hardest because you have to press a button in the middle. They've even got feet nowadays that you can put your button on with. I'm going to see if I can put this in here and then put it on the machine, because this machine is very difficult to get your hands in. Oh, there's not a lot of room under here. Do not buy a machine that looks like this. There's no room for your hand in there or in there. You have to dismantle it and take that off. Right, this is a barbecue skewer. It's wood. Don't put anything metal anywhere near your beloved sewing machine. This will come up and we'll put the fabric underneath. It's always good to have a test for your buttons. Okay, it's not playing ball. So it has a stitch on here, 29, and it's going to put my button on for me, and it's going to give me about 8 stitches. So I'm going to go in that hole, put my needle in it for the first buttonhole, then I'm going to turn the button round if I can. There's a little red line here. It's as much use as a chocolate fire guard, because when you look at it from above, if you get right above the machine, you can't see it because this is all in the way. Don't buy a machine that looks like this, please. Right. Button foot down. I'm going to turn it by hand and I'm going to see if that needle goes in that hole. It's still a little bit tight, so let's get my barbecue skewer. That came out well, didn't it? Go in there. Ooh. 1, 2. Still a bit tight, but I think we can do that. Yep, we're okay. Go slowly if you're worried about it hitting the button, because it might break your needle. Just turn it by hand. You've only got to turn it a few times. Then, to do the next one, we bring it out. Oh, and if we wanted to have a little space, there's a little thing on here that pokes this out. And that'll give you a little bit of a shank on your button. You can't see that very well. And I can't turn the light off either to show you. Can you see that? No. Never mind. So you pull it through. I'll stick it back. And then you work out where your next holes are. 1 in there. 1 in there. Right. And we're off. Nice and slowly, nice and steady. Just in case it flings like a flingy thing. A tiddlywink. I've still got my foot on the pedal, but because it's done a lock stitch for me and it's stitched 8 times, which it says it's going to, it's ready. So you take that out of there. I'll take the foot off. And you can again get your pieces of thread and you can thread them through to the back, and then you can take them in between where the placket is, and hey presto. That's how easy buttons are. Right then, I think that's it. I'm going to try and meld this video together. I don't know how to do it. Oh, please hit subscribe. I think it's there. Comes up there somewhere. You, my little picture. And please hit like, and then you'll know when the next one's coming. Nieces and nephews, love you lots. Anybody else who's watching, you're very welcome. I did it for them. And love you, Georgina. Bye.